So we just came from choir, and Venerable got sick, and so she had to go home. Oh, louder. Yes, ma'am. And so I know that she continues to persevere and be here for us in whatever capacity that she can, continuously and selflessly, wanting to protect us and guide us and lead us out of suffering. And coming here and being part of the choir, I've learned a lot of valuable lessons just in that little sphere of Heartwood, because Heartwood does a lot of different things and has always done a lot of different things. And something that I'm learning about is what we're doing is not, I have to be careful with the words I use, but it's not essentially creativity. And I've been reflecting a lot on like what that means, because Venerable has been so adamant about that. And something that I'm learning is when you're doing things like music, but on the Buddhist path, it's not to seek gain, right? Like nothing is to seek gain, fame, recognition, status, success, or even to gain a sense of validation for yourself. Like we can like really like make art, make our homes nice, wear nice clothes because we're seeking to gain something for ourselves. And that's not what the practice of Buddhism is. The practice of Buddhism at a low level is to basically become aware of the defilements and abandon them, break them down, penetrate them by seeing them clearly and then taking the pathway out. So essentially, the Four Noble Truths, everything is comprised in the Four Noble Truths. And so I'm just kind of rolling into this. Maybe let's go ahead and open and then we'll continue. Um, I'll go ahead and just Om Namo Namo Buddhaya Buddhaya Dhammaya Sanghaya. Om Namo Namo Buddhaya Buddhaya Dhammaya Sanghaya. Om Namo 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 Buddhaya. Om Namo 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 Buddhaya. Om Namo Namo Buddhaya Buddhaya Dhammaya Sanghaya. Om Namo Namo Buddhaya Buddhaya Dhammaya Sanghaya. Namo Di San Shi Doje Chang Fu. 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 something about music has a way of immediately inspiring me and just kind of setting my heart right. Like if I'm off kilter or a little bit shaky, or a little bit low, somehow it immediately brings this buoyancy to my mind. And now, having gone through that, having entered through that, I'm more available. I'm ready to listen, to engage, to hear what the Buddha has to say, to hear what my teacher has to convey, and to really listen to the Dhamma. That's kind of the purpose of, our music and what we're trying to do. It's not so much to create, but it's to bring the mind to a place where it can receive and it can penetrate the Buddha's teachings. And so it's a blessing to be able to learn, what that is, and how we can do that, how we can be a part of that. And everyone has that opportunity, no matter what it is, whether it be cooking, like Nancy or Reba, Brian, like his incredible photography. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's your one-on-one time that you can give to people like Soma. Because along with our practice, we say the vow, like I vow to save all living beings. And so part of our practice is to endeavor to actually bring people onto the path. But how do we do that without inspiring them? How do we do that without kind of being set apart from the world? Or are we just doing everyday, mundane, regular things with a worldly mentality? It wouldn't inspire me to step onto the Dharma, to step onto the Dharma path. I'd just be like, well, why not just this? And so the Buddha uses a variety, like Buddha Master, we could see he used a variety of skillful means to inspire others to walk onto this path. And so seeing how everything kind of has its place, like that's what our music program is. Our music program is to learn how to do that. Our Vidya school essentially learn how to inspire so that people can come to the Dharma. Because the Dharma has its work and it has its work in our life, right? But if we're not ready to hear, then we're not going to learn. So recently in our studies, we've been learning about if you want to master the Dharma, you have to be proficient in both exoteric and esoteric Dharmas. Exoteric's the entire Tripitaka, and it's like all of these other discourses. I'm sorry, what's the word? Like the treatises and the sutras and things like that. And so I'm like, okay. Thank you, Buddha Master, because you've given me my homework. I know what I need to do, right? So yes, been studying the Majjhima Nikaya, yes, been learning about the sutras, but I'm like, but I really want to get to know, like, what is this thing that I am doing? Like, okay, I've been given external practices, preliminary practice, I've been given incredible teachings and discourses, but like, really, what am I doing? What am I supposed to be doing? And so that's kind of what I've been coming to, because it's so interesting. I learn a lot of my lessons through music. I don't know, I guess it's just how my mind works, but Bobby was giving me piano lessons. And I'm so grateful for it. And it's taught me a lot. And I went on the piano and I just started like kerplunking. He's like, no, 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 no. What are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just having fun. He's like, never do anything that you don't know what you're not doing. And I just really sat there. I'm like, oh my God, you're so right. All of these things, in my life that I've done that I didn't really know what I was doing, but I thought it would be better to make a decision because you can't not act, right? But it's like, so how many times was I doing things out of essentially delusion, and not really doing it because I'm like, I know the purpose of this. Is that what we're doing with Dharma? Like, you know what I mean? Do we know the purpose of Dharma? Or are we just coming here to delight our ears and kind of go through the practices and like in an empty way? And so when he said that, I was like, oh, I don't really fully know that about my Dharma practice yet. I've devoted my life to this. What a joke, like, wow. So some, I just had to take some time with myself and really be with that because it was such a profound lesson to me. And so, I really started to look at more like, what is this monasticism role? Like, yeah, I get it. Like, I remember why I first chose to do it. But now I'm choosing it again and again and again. What does it mean now? And if my frame of mind isn't constantly refining, then I'm not doing the work. That's partly what the work is to constantly refine, to constantly, allow the Dharma to cleanse, purify, and wash our mind so that we can gradually, become essentially non-becoming. The greatest, what do you call it, Reba? No, anyways, it's a word that I can't think of. But and so I was like, so I really wanted to get that for myself. I wanted to know where I clearly am in every moment. Because that's our work. Our work is to become more aware. It's to become more centered, more certain, less doubtful. And then we begin to see that faith that arises is natural. It's not something that's contrived, and it's not something that's blind. I never want to force blind faith upon myself or upon anyone. That's not what this is. Faith arises from the work that you do. And so I started, really thinking about, okay, what is this practice? And I'm like, I started getting to, it's abandoning. We're abandoning things at its most basic level, right? Like I'm looking at, okay, I'm a novice nun. Buddha Master said we have to be proficient in exoteric Buddhism. That's where I'm at right now. You might be somewhere else. But what I'm saying is, I watched a Dharma video last night, and the question was, or he painted a picture, and he's like, let's say you go to the bathroom, like you did number 2, you relieved yourself, but you sprayed some spray so that it would cover up the smell. But the next person who walks in would know why that spray is there and could honestly probably tell the smell underneath it. Are we doing that with our practice? You know what I mean? Like, are we taking up things, taking up, covering what we're not abandoning, which essentially is the defilements of the mind? And so that really, really stood out to me. Oh my God, like, am I doing, like, do I do so many things to cover up what I don't want others to see? You know what I mean? Covering up the smell. And that gets to self-attachment, right? So are we practicing like preliminaries and our yidam practices with attachment to self? Like, are we practicing that? Like, what am I gonna gain from this? Like, what's gonna be the effect for me? All these things, always going into these high level practices with an I, but not actually really looking at, oh my gosh, I'm engaging in my Dharma practice with self-attachment. I'm not really practicing the Dharma, even though I've been given a Dharma to practice. Do you see what I mean? So if what we're doing isn't working, And it's working to a certain extent. It's because we're not abandoning the underlying I, that underlying self-attachment. And so we have to really, really look there. And we have to become skillful at the questions that we ask, because the I don't want you to know. It don't want you to ask any questions about itself, because it wants to live. It wants to live. And so you can start to begin by looking at all of your experiences, not even from a me, a mine, or a my, but from eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Right? So none of these things are actually happening to you. They're happening to these sense bases that come into contact. So I was reflecting on, like, why is romance such a big deal? Like, we have corporations, we have like, oh, like just worlds built around romance, just the right love story. You know what I mean? Like, why is that such like a desirable thing for us in samsara? Like, that is our crux right there. You know, that's our elbow, that's our Achilles heel, or however you'd say it. I'm reflecting on that, really. I'm like, oh my God, because it involves every single sense. When you are in love with someone, your eye sense base can see their form. Your ear sense base can hear their voice. Your nose can smell them. Your tongue can taste them. Your body can touch them, and your mind can create a world with them. So it is so captivating because it involves every single sense at like heightened measure. Food is also the next, because it's like eyes, nose, and taste. Reading a book, only eyes. And mind. Yes, correct. All of it is with mind. You can't have any of it with mind, so mind is implied. But to me, yeah, maybe the touch of the book, right? Touch and the eyes, but that's about it. And so we can see how there are certain things that only require so much. Listening to Dharma, ears and mind. So a lot of people maybe don't listen to the Dharma because their defilements run amok. They enter into a Dharma space and their mind starts going crazy. You know, maybe they fall asleep or something happens because the defilements are not receiving what they want. So when people say, "Ah, Dharma is not for me, these teachings aren't for me," that's not true. There's no I, me, mine. The way the outlets that the defilements have used as a means of escape, which is through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body and mind, they no longer have a means of escape. And essentially, that's what our Dharma practice is. Are we allowing the defilements of the mind to continuously escape through the sense bases? Or are we collecting them through concentration and then penetrating them through discernment and coming to know actually what the causes are of defilements? So something that one of a monk said is, are you practicing to uproot suffering, or are you practicing to uproot its causes? And I thought that was so wise to me, especially because I can be like, okay, I'm practicing to uproot suffering. But wait, suffering has a cause. What if you started looking at, I'm practicing to uproot these causes? And we know what those are: desire, greed, desire, hatred, and ignorance. And so what I'm saying is, do you know where you are on the path? Like, do you have that certainty? Do you have that unwavering faith of what you've been through? And could you clearly say what you have come to understand and know? Now, there's this whole space in our minds where we're like, I don't know. But the Dhamma is about becoming more aware, reducing delusion, and essentially becoming refined. And so I guess that's just what I'm bringing today is it would be a shame if we went through all of this work to not really have done anything after all. And it takes kind of that relinquishing and kind of persevering through the obstacles in a gentle, heartfelt, and genuine way. Because all of this is kind of it's a training of the mind. And so if we're unaware of what it means to practice Buddhism, then we won't actually train the mind. And that's what we're doing is we're training the mind. And so do you know where your mind is? And do you know what it's the training it's gone through? Because if you don't, how do you know what's next? How could anything that's next open up to you? Or are we striving for the thing to open up next to us, something else open up to us, even though we haven't even fully done what we have needed to with where we have been, if that makes sense. And so we need to clean things up, and we need to take a deep and careful look. And so also another thing too is, how well are you asking yourself questions? Do you ask yourself questions? Do you ponder why things are happening to you? Do you ponder why you want something? Do you ask, what is this? So let's say someone said something to me and I didn't feel any way about it. Like I really didn't. But then my mind started to toil over relationship, and like, oh, if I don't say anything, how will they perceive me? Like, do they think I won't care about them? Like all of these kinds of stories that build up a pancha, you know? And so it's like, do we have the capacity to stop ourselves in that moment, right when things start stirring up and saying, wait, what is this? Wait, who is this? If I'm worried about what they'll perceive of me, who is worried about what they'll perceive? There's no I, me, mine to begin with. Who is all this talk about? And when you ask yourself the right question, your mind will probably stop. Because it doesn't know, because there's not one. you know? And so, and that's the beauty. And then that's like when you could pick something up, right? Like the mind has to come, you have to penetrate a defilement. And then that's when you're like, oh, the Buddhas, the blessing of the Buddhas, loving kindness, all of these things. And so I've been really looking at this part of the path and saying, what good is it if I pick up any of these things, if I enter it with an I, me, or mine? Or do we just want to know all, all the high level teachings and talk about being a bodhisattva, but we're not really enduring or abandoning what is attached to the six sense bases, what the six sense base is attached to. So maybe what we'll do right now is think of a reoccurring problem. If you have one, you might have one. That when it comes up, it is so agitating. It is frustrating beyond all get out. What is it frustrating? Or do you always just assume it's frustrating me? This is frustrating to me. Don't attach the me. Say, this is frustrating. What? We always end everything with me. This is happening to me. No, this is happening to who? To what? That's what leads us out. We concretize everything by finishing, by assuming, by placing everything within the sphere of I, me, mine. Never getting out of samsara. Just literally like this. Crazy, 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 crazy. Because we perceive everything is happening to an I. So what if we didn't know what it was happening to? Who is this frustrating? Why is this frustrating? What is being agitated right now? Yeah, what's up?
So something that I have realized in my time and my practice is I appreciate what you said about being low level, the Four Noble Truths, and I'm coming to terms with the fact that there are times for me that I'm like, yeah, I'll accept that. And there's higher level fruit and there's lower level fruit, and today this is where I'm at. But in response to what you just said, I know for me when things are happening, and just what you said is I am feeling, what my mind can now go to is this pause and recognizing if I feel in the blank, whatever it is, you feel that as well. And I am equally as illusory to you as you are to me. And to walk away from that sense of me and recognize this is just what it is. And to love the person in front of me in a different way without the context of I feel this, but this is universal.
But we don't
perceive that,
right,
and be able to take the next, sometimes inaction, non-speech, and let it go right there. But that is one of the fruits that I've seen.
We don't have to contrive what is natural. So like the four Brahma Viharas are natural. We force it when we're in a self of I, or when we're in the place of an I. But if we remove the defilement, if we abandon it through clear seeing, then what is there is natural. And then we continuously practice that, we meditate on that, so that essentially becomes more of what our mind is. So then we're lessening our degree of the time that we are in defilement. So if we're trying to like generate these things, it's because we're still in the I, my, me.
It's not that I'm making an effort, it's just that recognition of as soon as something kind of
Oh, yeah.
hits me, I recognize my response is being, I suffer, you suffer, I feel this. And that universality, not consciously even thinking that, but recognizing it, at least being aware enough of myself to recognize, oh.
I actually love that example because it happens all the time. Like, especially when you become familiar with people, like they'll do something and you'll just immediately react without, like, there's no thought. What just happened? You know what I mean? It's like that just, like that just came out of my mouth, but there was no thought. It was just immediate. What is that? You know? And that's almost terrifying because now you're like, now I have to clean up something that was just a habituated response through, honestly, a lack of care and mindfulness. So that takes work too. So that's actually what is so helpful about constant care and mindfulness about our actions, is it because it reduces the chances of something like that happening. You know, and so especially because karma ripens, dark karma, Or good karma. I mean, good karma could ripen and you become enthusiastic about it, and boom, you just agitated the mind and created a horrible cause. So even like good fruit can bear bad causes because of our unskillfulness, because we're still trapped in samsara. And so it's honestly real wild. Um, but what is so happy to me is because I never thought that I could get over some of the things that I never could have. My whole life, just this like gut-wrenching, like way about me, like really thinking I'm gonna be like this for the rest of my life. And it's like, no, not when you take up the Buddha's teachings. So are we unknowingly, unintentionally undermining the Dharma because we can't change? Do we really, truly, honestly take every problem that we have to Buddha, every problem that we have to Dharma? Or do we kind of hang on to it, kind of thinking like, oh, I can't change? When you do that, you create negative karma for undermining the Dharma, yet claiming to be a Dharma practitioner. So like there's a lot of things that like I've I'm still holding on to as my problem. There's that me again. And thinking like, oh, I need to fix this. Instead of fully taking it to the Dharma and it having the solution for me. And the only reason I can say that is because it's starting to do that for certain things that I thought I'd be crippled with my entire life. And now it's fading away like it never even existed. Honestly, like not even a thought in my mind. So are we undermining the Dharma? Because if we are, we need to be really careful at what we call ourselves. Like really careful. And are we seeking enlightenment when even we're not even willing to abandon things? And are we doing things in our life for a sense of gain, for a sense of validation? Like I was like, have I been pursuing enlightenment just as a means so that I can prove my self-worth? Like, are we engaging in this so that we can like literally make ourselves feel better? Doing it out of the I? Doing it out of the me, the mine? Is that what our process is? Because that's not practicing the Dharma. We have to know what it means to practice the Dharma, and it's our responsibility. And trust me, you'll know when you know, and no one can take that away from you.
I appreciate that, Kedara, because I actually took a note, like, and I usually don't. I can't see. Is that to continue to let go of virtuous deeds for any reward, outcome, or goal, and to be able to perfect the freely giving and finding the joy in just that.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's considered to be low level, to let go of that and to develop that to perfection without having to justify myself, my thoughts, or my actions. And I find myself getting lost in words when I try and explain something, but in action, when I'm totally not thinking. And it usually is when I'm with someone who has got significant delays and I'm engaging in any way. But
Mm-hmm.
that's where the truest form of my nature comes through. And there's complete non-attachment to any of that. So
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. And
Yep.
my entrapment for me is when I try to explain or validate that instead of just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably my hang
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And I don't define myself necessarily as a Buddhist, because to be honest, once I leave this Sangha, I really don't engage with any other Buddhists. They're all Baptist or Episcopalians.
Yeah.
And
So then why do you
in
come
that space,
why do you come to Dharma?
but in that space, what I need to do is to be the walking version of what I believe the Buddha Dharma to be without defining it. And that to me is why, so that I can be that presence, so that I can be that nature. And not necessarily walk someone towards Buddhism, but to walk somebody to a path of clarity and love.
Right. And I think that's what we're all doing, but it's how do you do that? And that's what we're learning. That's what I started off talking about, because we base everything that's happening to us as real because it's something that's happening through the sixth sense basis. Right. And so if we just worked on our defilements, our own defilements, we would automatically be that peace loving presence for everybody. So we don't have to work at what we naturally are. Like you don't be peace by trying to create it. You be it because it is. We're working on the defilements, the greed, the covetousness, the lust, the hatred, the ill will. That's what we're working on. We're really those are the things. And so, that's fine.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. What? Oh. Mm-mm. Yeah.
This is a kind of a trivial example in a way, but one thing that psychologists dread is to go out in the waiting room and see that two patients have shown up at the same time. Because we're kind of obligated to give everybody that precious time, and that happened to me not long ago. I thought, oh shit. And I heard this little voice. It was not really a voice, it was kind of a loud thought, but it was just right there. It said, "This isn't happening to anybody."
Yeah.
And it was, I gotta tell you, it's so powerful. It changed the whole subject of what that experience was. And things just worked out. I mean, it's like the words weren't really even coming from me, that I was saying and talking to these two people and saying, here's what the dilemma is. And we just very easily worked the thing out, came to an understanding about it. There was no damage done. If I had tried to work that out from a place of anxiety, or from a selfing kind of perspective, which would have involved a lot of anxiety because would have to be in control and I'd have to make things okay. It just would have been gasoline on the fire. And there wasn't any fire.
Right.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is happening to anybody.
Simple example.
I love that. That's wonderful. Imagine how venerable feels like we're tripping over things all the time that aren't really there. It's just not even there. It's in our, it's literally like a fabrication of the mind. And so I love how that question came up for you naturally, and so, that's what I wanted to touch base on about what you were sharing is when Buddha Master talks about we're practicing naturally, we have to learn what that means. Or are we just naturally, but we don't really know what that means because Dharma comes with proofs. That's, to attain accomplishment, there are proofs. And if we're not getting any proofs and it could be the most babyest proof, to me, that's a proof of your practice because that was a spontaneous thought that arose. It wasn't something that was forced. It was something that is in your being, is in your mind through your continual practice. And so those are proofs.
To view the world almost and I've always loved it, the Vihiya Sutta, it's just to have that pause, have to go, it's just sight, it's my eye connected to this brain. What I heard, just, that's it, stop it right there to a sense gate.
So,
Yeah, because that's that tying, right? So like a vision action is occurring like from the past and then like that's the karma we're dealing with, like, oh, too low, can't do anything about that. Born into this body as a girl, encountered the Dharma at this time. Like that's all like because of past of action. What I have to work on now is current grasping and craving. And that's the hard work because that's what's painful. Soma or Busita, would you like to say anything?
I appreciate the fact that you're really mirroring what we need to be working on. And I appreciate the fact that you are able to identify for us all, but through your example, but also through the questions of what is it for me? What is it for me that trips me up, that presents itself over and over again? And is it because I turn to a concept? Or do I really engage with it and look at it and decide this is no longer serving me or others?
Mm-hmm.
Because that way we take what we're learning from out here and bringing it into the essence of who we are and being honest with ourselves about that, about our defilements, what surfaces, how do they surface, why this, why now? If you always do what you've always done, you always get what you always got.
Mm-hmm.
So as I always said, that the naturopath said to me, what are you willing to do to feel better?
Mm.
And if you're not feeling like something needs to change, then maybe look at that. Because there's, in this, as ordinary people, we've always got something that's churning them.
I appreciate the topic. It's been one that I've been contemplating and spending time with lately, and just the mindfulness and awareness that's required, that's benefiting us when we bring that mindfulness and awareness to every moment. We can see more clearly, time slows down, and we can see more clearly that the words that are going through our head, where we might have a habit of reacting to them and identifying with them, if we can bring that mindful presence to the moment, we can see its true nature of transience and emptiness and non-self. And so what a liberating thing when we can bring ourselves to that space, because then when we can let that go and we can be with more of a allowance for prajna, the true wisdom, to guide us instead of that false mind that we're so used to paying attention to. So I appreciate it very much.
False mind. Joe? Thank you, Busita.
I'm latching on to what you just said, which is we're already the peace.
Mm.
And so what came to me was we just have to let it be, like the Beatles said. And revisit those lyrics and see if it lines up. But the letting it be
Mm-hmm.
is kind of trusting that there is that you are that you can be that.
Mm-hmm.
And when anything comes up against that, that's the defilement you're talking about, and abandon it, know what it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And understand that we are already in peace.
Yeah. And getting good at that, like constantly, like just turning over the palm of your hand. And then from there, you use skillful means. Then from there you generate like bodhicitta, and compassion. And that's essentially the work to save living beings. So it's like could I really save a living being if I'm in a defiled mind? Like if I'm in a defiled state, perceiving there to be an I don't know. That's my question to myself. There's levels. There are levels. But Buddha Master says what, millions, billions of awakening. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's it seems also important not to identify with the defilements.
Yeah, right.
Like they're just transient passing states too, that we, tend to identify with and that benefit us by modifying, with the planting of causes that will produce effects that will then affect this being or other beings, but also not to hold onto that too tight either.
Mhm.
I also think as we're taking these things on, we ordinary, run-of-the-mill people tend to either experience it, don't pay attention, and then it blows up. And we take it and we wanna throw it, so we wanna go the other direction
Mhm.
instead of finding that middle way of just saying, what you were talking about, Jim. Well, there's no I here, there's no me. And then it works itself out, but we react one way or another and attach to it, be
Mhm.
good or bad, and then I know, why did I just say that?
Mhm.
But being able to just try to relax with it a little bit.
Yeah, so then you start doing things not for self, not for me, mine, but because you start to understand karma and causality. And so like when you start to when you start to see that clearly, you're like, okay, but still there has to be a moral and ethical code because of causality, because of the law of causality. So you still have to do like good and you still have to continuously purify because there will still be reaps, but you're not doing it for a self. You're not doing it to reinforce self. And knowing that difference is key to progress on the path. And so that's why it takes really looking and really knowing like what is Buddhism? And why do I practice Buddhism? Why do I come to the Dharma?
I was just reflecting on how I tend to see the Dharma being practiced by people who aren't Buddhist all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it feel more accessible to me. An example would be my sister-in-law who lives here, brother-in-law. His parents are both, I think, 93 and 95 or 6, and they're moving from Charlottesville today to Lake Point Landing, but they'll be at a transition at my sister's house while the furniture arrives and all that. But I've been watching my sister go by fresh linens and measure things and wash the stuff and get it ready and take it over and she said yesterday, I really want their transition to be as feel as ordinary for them as possible. And so she said, I think I'm going to make meatloaf and mashed potatoes, and instead of one of her exotic, she's quite a chef. And she's giving up, their house is set up so there's only one bedroom on the main accessible level, which is hers and her husband's. So they'll move downstairs and let that be accessible for them. And that's a big deal. I mean, all your clothes are there and it takes a lot of planning and to make space, and it will just be several days. But her sister-in-law, who lives in Australia, is also up, so she's hosting her while this transition is going on. And they're going to have to take from this home of 53 years some of their things to store in their place, and all the sorting with what they think they might want now versus what is going to turn out, and just holding space for that allowance and not saying you don't need or that's wrong. I'm just watching this grace go on. And so and there's still opinions, but she's backed out as a daughter-in-law of 50 years of trying to impose anything, but with the faith that it's going to work out with enough space. And that space between when there's something occurring and a response is where that grace is, and where we can causes can be more, can have a potential for more beneficial versus you can't take it back. And, you know, it's, you know, I'm very blessed to have a partner that, you know, practices and I practice too. And there's not, there's very little that is, you know, needing to be apologized for.
Right.
And, he could have had it this morning because I took down a decoration that he put up yesterday. And it shed all over the place and it was blocking the access to the handrail. And his intention was beautiful and it was whatever, but it was
Brian's
still
smiling.
not something I could live with for safety, you know. And when I told him I took it
She's
down at
apologizing.
3 and apologized, he laughed. It's okay, you know. But you know, and so he has to put up with me just saying, you know, I wouldn't be okay to be nice, and to not want to hurt his feelings if I had gone against what I thought was safe, you know. And it wasn't like saying I don't like that there, that's not pretty, you know. And I slept on it a day until 3 a.m. anyway. And so it's just worldly things come up.
Right.
And it's just, you know, I have an aging body that when I no longer think, you know, what's wrong with me, I really think, what do I need to do for this vessel? You know, so it's just a shift of my mind instead of thinking I'm in pain, thinking there's an uncomfortable sensation.
Yeah.
What do I need to do?
And we have to, and I love all those examples because we have to have faith that the Dharma will protect us, because we do a lot of things out of like a scarcity or security. So thinking like, oh, I don't want to like piss off Brian because I want to say what's truthful, you know? And so we fear that we fear about our relationships or how we'll be perceived rather than maintaining our integrity. And our integrity comes from essentially the Dharma, you know, what is true, what is natural. And so that's really, really important too, to start getting kind of an eye on that and how we do that and how much self-preservation we are constantly just doing over and over and over and over and over again because we want to look a certain way. We want to be this kind of person. Like when I brought up about someone saying something to me, I didn't think anything of it. And then I started to create papancha about it, is because it was like, will they think that I don't care? Well, what does that matter? Do I actually care? Is that why I'm having that thought? Maybe I don't actually care, you know? And like, that's really what it is. It's not about what will it look like. I mean, it is because we want to benefit others, but really, do I actually not care? And if that is, where do I take that up? I don't take that up with them, fixing the problem with them. I take that up with the Dharma. And that's where my problem gets solved. You know what I mean? So why do I not care? Who doesn't care? What doesn't care? It's because something has not been revealed to me. I have yet to see some part of reality that would immediately dispel that way of being, that ill will. Because I have not seen self and other as not separate, essentially other as self. And so that's what I mean when we have to know where we are. We have to ask us our questions. And then when something comes up, are we trying to fix it outside? Or are we trying to fix it with the Dharma? That's when we really have to be clear on what is refuge and what does it mean to take refuge? Or am I taking refuge in the samsaric feelings of my friends? Is that what I'm trying to adhere to or trying to placate or trying to make sense out of my life from? No, we're only adding distress. we're only adding harm. And so that's where the skillfulness comes in, and that's what takes a lot of practice. Yes, ma'am. Hi, welcome. No, this is great. Hi.
So what, yeah, this may be part of what you're talking about. So what obligation do we have for others' souls that who harmed us?
What obligation do we have?
Yes.
To remove our ill will from them. That is our obligation. We have a prayer, and also to wish them a happy life, and
We're not obligated to have relationships.
not at all.
I want confirmation.
You know, and yeah, and it depends on the level, right? Like it depends, like, because there's levels to everything, so it depends on the situation. So like a friend could have hurt me because they were doing something maybe out of fear, and maybe they didn't try to intentionally hurt me, but because of the way that the thing played out, I got hurt. Now, for me, as a Buddhist and as a friend, it's my role to probably continue building a relationship with them because I know their intention. You do have you have to ask the question, what was their intention? If they're honest with you, and so it's kind of tricky. And so you have to really reflect on that yourself. But the biggest thing is to remove your own ill will and to wish them happiness and the causes of happiness, because the reason they did that in the first place is because they were removed from them.
An example in my life was that I used to be married, and it was a 24 years, and the last part of it was textbook suffering, and yet it didn't mean I didn't love the person, but I honestly, truly never had a vengeful thought. I could see there was suffering that was a cause of why he wanted to hurt me. And so it made perfect sense for me to only want him and to take care of myself, but to only want him to have everything I wanted for myself, peace and happiness. Not the way I would define happiness, but the way he will define happiness. And so, and that was before I came to Buddhism, but, it was just one of those things that staying would have just caused continued more suffering and bad karma.
Mm-hmm. And the beauty about the Dhamma is the more we learn it, the more we see that it wasn't a person who did it. And so we actually see past their actions and see what's really happening. And there's actually a true love that arises for them. And that's your freedom. That's your safety. Yeah.
To what I was saying before is that sense of, if I feel affronted, if I feel something, to have that pause and recognize the person in front of me has felt this too, and to just lay it down right there to understand that person too. So
I'm going to bring up the prayer that Venerable was sharing, because I'm trying to remember it right now, because it just plays into what we're talking about. Let's see if I can get it. Bucini emailed it to me. Did you email it to me? Yeah, if you guys have the copies. Oh, you have it up?
73 parts.
Yeah, so this is a perfect example because we're in relation with people all the time. And we've been doing this prayer every day because Venerable has requested us to do it every morning for a month, and just to see how our mind turns. And so I've been doing it. And the part that sticks out to me right now is especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path. But it's so interesting because I'm in a good space with everyone in my life right now. But I'm not gonna jinx it, but I am. And so the first thing that comes up is my defilements. That's literally what my mind is thinking about, especially those enemies who hate me. Okay, so my defilements of ill will, greed and delusion, obstructors who harm me. That, the own things happening in my mind. That's what harms me. Those who create obstacles on my path. My own fear. But the amount of fear that I have had in my life that I have to really work on has created so many obstacles for me. And that didn't come from anybody. That came from my own mind. If you were truly fearless like a bodhisattva, you could be in a hell realm with demons like flying at you, shooting fireballs, but like you'd be unscathed because there's no defilement of the mind. Purity, And so what I love, like this is where loving kindness starts for yourself and for others, is really looking at the defilements of the mind and abandoning them with true and correct practice. And as Buddha Master says, it'll happen naturally. So we can have grace with ourselves and patience because it takes time.
So what you made clear to me today is the Dharma, with all its complexity. You mentioned the Tripitaka and the esoteric, right? It's like the entire, all the complexity of Buddhism with all its lists and all that stuff, gives us a new basis. The Dharma gives us a new basis from which to judge and discern everything that happens in our lives. It's a new base. It's a new home base.
Yeah.
And from that, we judge everything. And in my experience, it gets internalized. So there is all that information. And we look at a sutta and it's all, they're very elaborate, these suttas. But eventually, if we try to say, all right, I'll take that out today. That's useful to me. I'll take that out today. I'll take that out this week. And we try to, then it becomes internalized. And we don't necessarily need that sutta all the time anymore. It becomes internalized for us. And then we begin to see our interaction in the world through that, like a lens. And that's what the Dharma is. It's this new basis. That's what I'm getting from your talk today. It's this new basis. We are already the peace, right? We just have to recognize these things that keep smattering the glass, right?
And then as Buddha masters say, like at the top level is when state and wisdom fuse, like the lens to reality. And when the lens becomes perfectly pure, then reality and the lens are inherently one. And yeah.
We've polished the mirror.
Yeah, polish the mirror. That's the process. That is the process. So we're on the path of refinement. So make sure you ask yourself questions. You really get to know your true intentions. And if you solidify anything with an I, me, mine, go back in and take a, I don't know, take a crowbar and really get underneath it and make sure you have the right tool. Like I realized for some things I was trying to use a piece of wood or a yo-yo. That's not going to work. I need a crowbar to get under this hood, And so we got to have the right tools for the right things. And so this is a very personal path and it's not personal at all. So we'll go ahead and close out with actually, unless anybody has anything else to say. We'll close out with refuge and generating bodhicitta. And does everyone have it or everyone took it home? Oh no, we're not going to close out with that then. Oh, I'll read it, but I want to just sing a song.
Why don't you say it with you, like internally?
Okay. All mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they quickly experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious awakening. Thus, until I achieve awakening, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until I attain the heart of Bodhi, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas developed awakening mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all wandering beings, give rise to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. I'm sorry, I did want to remind one thing because it came up as we read this. We talk about exoteric and esoteric Dharma. The Bodhisattvas also have to be proficient in exoteric Buddhism. They have to go through that stage. That's not something that we can surpass because we're like, oh, we're Mahayana practitioners. Oh, I'm a Vajrayana practitioner, so I don't have to learn these things. That's not true. Buddha Master actually speaks about it being the path that that we go through. Oh, I'm sorry, that might be wrong. He says Shravakas, Pratika Buddhas, and all Arhats. Okay, don't hold me to that.
No, I think it is true. It's true.
It's
for
true,
me.
right?
It's true
That's
for
what I
me.
thought.
But
Okay,
the first
let me look
several
at this.
years, Part word for me, it was, Dharma talk and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Were based on the Tripitaka, were based on what we call exoteric Dharma, or,
Oh, he says Bodhisattva right here.
et cetera. And, in the beginning, and I've told this story many times, and in the beginning, there was a lot of talk about suffering when I went to a Dharma talk. There was all this talk about suffering. I'm like, what? I don't suffer. I have a house, I have a family, I have a job, I have a career, a beautiful career. The way, I don't suffer. And then after a while, I started to sort of, pick up some of the things they suggested. Well, that sounds like it might be useful. I'll take that up this week. And it started to point towards areas that, oh, wait, I didn't sleep last night because I'm nervous about this meeting at work. That must be part of what they mean by suffering. I do suffer.
Wow.
Oh, I do suffer. Okay. And so those teachings were
Oof.
valuable to me to point to, okay, so I understand what we're talking about here. Now I see the purpose for something like mindfulness. Now I see the purpose for something like a loving kindness practice that takes my mind out, broadens it from this constant self-concern. Now I understand where the suffering comes from. It's the self-concern. Okay. And so, but then it got to let me know my own mind. And then I started to be able to understand how others were suffering too, and be able to practice forbearance with them, because they weren't doing anything different than I would be doing. Right? And so that's all a very important basis for how I walk around today. And then the Mahayana teachings and the Vajrayana teachings that I've encountered since have added to that. And reinforced that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one big circular thing, the Dharma. One thing feeds the other.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, you're lucky to have lived a life where you were unaware of suffering.
Yeah.
You must have had it pretty good, Joe. You must have had it pretty good. Mhm.
I just didn't know what they meant by that.
101.
Well, because we think of suffering as you're hungry in Africa, you're homeless, that's what, it's a television version of suffering, if that's what, well, I don't have any of that. Those extreme cases, but the truth is, yes, we are all suffering and causing suffering. Because we suffer, we cause suffering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Buddha Master says they all must pass through this route. Shravakas, Pratika Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, and essentially prajna of emptiness of personhood is called Share Prajna. So that's what we're looking at. It's the exoteric Dharma of non-self.
Said the word you were looking for earlier in Protestant?
No, I was making sure that he said Bodhisattva went through there, because I remember reading it yesterday. But then when I looked, his next line said Shrivaka's, anyways, but yeah, it's there. Thank you so much, everyone. May we keep our dear precious teacher, Venerable Panawati, in our hearts and in our minds, because she is really going through the dying process. And whatever that looks like is, unique to her. But she continuously comes out every day to help us constantly in every way. So place your mind upon that, because that is honestly what is continuing to carry our Sangha. She's like, her body is broken, yet we are floating because of her diligence and her perseverance. So may the merit of today's practice be dedicated to our dear teacher, Venerable Panawati. May she sustain a long life and one that is continues with peace and rest and a clean transition, one free from samsara. May this merit also be dedicated to all sentient beings who wander in samsara. May they be blessed by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and attain Nibbana immediately.